Hello, good evening. Am I the last person between you and the bar? OK, I'll try to make it quick. It's a short session. It's just 20 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip all the marketing and directly get into the architecture and the demo of the solution. So essentially, Flowsum is an application lifecycle management solution. It does much more than release management, continuous integration, continuous deployment. And the solution is built entirely on the Force.com platform. So one of the things what we have done is the biggest differentiator that we have is we have put a lot of investment in it from an engineering perspective and built the entire version control system on top of the Force.com platform. Essentially, we offer two choices to customers. One is you could use Git-based integration or SVN, use any of the standard version control systems that are available out there. Or you can use a Flowsum's version control system, which is completely built on the Force.com platform. And it offers all the powerful capabilities that you need from a version control, but none of the baggage that you don't need from a version control. So it's tightly aligned very much to the Salesforce platform. And it's very easy to use. With other platforms, other version control systems, there's a big learning curve. With Flowsum, you can start using Flowsum in less than 1 day. There's hardly any training curve. So with that, what we are going to do is we are going to jump into the architecture of Flowsum and then get into the demo of the solution. So what you see here is in the top box, you have the Flowsum solution. And here below, you have the various development orgs, test orgs, UAT stage org. So what you see in the pink box, the Flowsum solution, it's nothing but a different Salesforce org. That org, it's provisioned to you by Flowsum when you purchase Flowsum. So you don't have to contact Salesforce. That new org will work as an orchestration hub, and it's provisioned by Flowsum. And only your team will have access to that Flowsum org. None of the other customers will have access to the Flowsum org. There are many customers in the banking space, in the financial services space, in government industry, public sector, healthcare. They have a lot of legal compliances and security requirements. And they cannot have the data on any other platform like AWS or even Heroku. If you look at most customers in financial services segment, they won't even touch Heroku. So the advantage of this is because the data is completely on the Salesforce platform, and it's completely managed by you, there are no security issues or compliance issues. That's why we have a lot of banking customers, a lot of customers like Visa and other in financial services who use a solution. In addition to that, there is an optional component that you can use, what we call is local Flowsum. So local Flowsum sits in the development boxes, and it can push and pull metadata to the repository. So the repository is built in the main Flowsum org, but the small piece that you see in the development org, it can push and pull metadata in exchange with the repository. That's how your development orgs stay in sync with the main Flowsum org. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the solution. So here you'll see nothing but the Salesforce user interface. Everything is, again, built on the Force.com platform. Under the orgs tab, you can see all the various orgs registered, all the dev orgs, QA orgs, UAT orgs. And you can assign access depending on your org permissions. So you can say the following 2 people can deploy to production, but the others cannot touch the production org. So let's walk through the process of creating a change in the development org, and then committing a change to the repository, and then deploying the change into the production org. So the first thing we would do is, let's say we made a change in the development org. There are 2 ways to pull changes from the development org. The first is we can create a snapshot. So snapshot, essentially, we can say pull all the changes done in the last 14 days, last 1 month, however long you want to go back. You can pull all the changes from the development org. You can also schedule this functionality. We see a lot of customers, they accidentally refresh a sandbox, and they lose a lot of code. So you can schedule a snapshot feature, and it'll back up all the code from your development sandboxes or the production org on a periodic basis. You can give it a name of the snapshot. You can say, what is the criteria that you want? Do you want all the components? If you don't put any criteria, it'll pull in all the components in that time range. Or you can say, pull all the component types. You can give the name of the component, or you can give the name of the developer whose changes you want to pull in. So snapshot is one way where you can pull changes from your development org into Flowsum. The other way to do it is you can directly push the changes from the development org using local Flowsum into the repository of the Flowsum org. So once you create a snapshot, you can see all the changes. Here we have created a snapshot. We said pull all the changes in the last 1 day, and it pulled up 3 changes done in the org. So it'll scan the entire org, it'll look for all the changes, and pull all the changes done in that time frame. And you can see all the components, and we also pull in all the metadata, all the XML files, all the Apex class, Visualforce pages, whatever it is, we pull in and store it as part of the snapshot. And then either you can do 2 things. One is you can transfer it to a patch. That means you can create a deployment, or you can commit it to a branch. So in Flowsum, in the version control repository, here you have the branches repository commits. This is all version control built within the Flowsum organization itself. When we log in into a branch, let's say this is the name of the feature branch. Typically, each feature branch corresponds to a feature or a user story or a Jira ticket. This is a feature branch, and these are the components committed from the snapshot into the feature branch, right? And you can commit it as many times as you want. You can commit it once. If you're not done with the change, you can go back to the development org, again do the changes, again commit the changes to the branch. You can commit new components or additional components to that. Now, there are, again, multiple things you can do here. You can merge multiple branches. You can create an integration branch, or you can commit this to the repository or the master branch within Flowsum. So the master branch here in Flowsum is called as the repository. And when you commit the changes to the repository, you can see whether you have conflicts or those components are safe to commit. So here, what Flowsum is telling me is these components are safe to commit, and I can commit them to the repository. And the reason it's safe to commit is because this component is new. So if I just commit it to the master branch, it won't harm anyone. But these components have a conflict. And if I look at the conflict, it'll show me exactly what the conflict is. So on the left-hand side, you can see this is a component from the repository. So this was the last change done by the last person, latest change done by the last person. And this is a component that I am committing that is in my current branch right now. And the previous person had made a whole bunch of changes. And those changes are missing on my side. But if you look on my side, we have an extra field which was not done by which the last person did not have. So I can merge the changes here. The main advantage here is we are comparing. Not only, we are not comparing line-by-line code. So if you use another version control system like Git or anything else, Git essentially does a line-by-line comparison. What we are doing here is we are doing XML comparison. Not only we do XML comparison, but also on top of that, we do semantic comparison based on different objects. So based on whether it's custom object or Lightning components, merge conflict resolution changes in a different way. So if I want to merge the changes, I can pull down those changes on my side. So I can move the changes from left to right. Similarly, I can move this field from left to right. So once I have all those changes, I can also choose to do a manual edit. So I can see, again, the XML file on the left-hand side, XML file on the right-hand side. If I want to cut, I can cut and copy the code from the left to the right-hand side. Right? So you can either do point and click, or you can do manual changes. Either way, that works for you. Once you're done, you can say apply, and those changes will get committed into the master branch in Flowsum. Right? So if you look at the repository, which is the master branch, this has all the commits done by all the developers. Right? So this is like the trunk of SVN or the master branch of a Git version control system. If you want, you can search on any component. Let's say if you want to track the life cycle, all the life cycle of the components starting with the word expenses. You can search on that, and you'll see all the components with that specific keyword. Let's say if you drill down and want to see exactly what are the changes made, you can see that this is an expenses page. It's a Visualforce page. And all the 4 versions of those components can be seen here. You can see exactly why those components were changed, who changed them, when they changed them. If you want to deploy an older version of the code, you can also deploy the older version of the code. If you want to compare two components side by side, let's say if I want to compare version 2 with version 4, I can also do that. I can select those versions, and I can say, compare those two versions, and you'll see the differences. So on my left, I have version 2, and on my right, I have version 4, and you can see the differences from one to another. And then finally, you can see how the deployments are done. So you can create deployments very quickly within Flowsum. So in Flowsum, the patches are called deployments, essentially. You can select the components, create the manifest very quickly. And then here, you can see all the components that will be deployed. You can do a bunch of things on this page. You can do validation. So before deployment, you can validate the changes. While deployment, you can do code coverage analysis. You can run all the Apex tests. You can skip the test. Depending on how you want to do it, you can have that kind of a deployment. And we also do automatic rollbacks. So during deployment, we collect all the intelligence so that in case you want to roll back in future, you can just click on this button, and we'll automatically undo all the actions and bring the org back to the same state. You can also schedule deployments for a later time. If you want to use quick deploy, fast deploy within Salesforce, you can also choose to do that. You can see the entire deployment history. So especially for customers who are doing SOX compliance, who are doing Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, they have to track exactly where the patch was deployed. They have to get signups from the business. So this will tell you exactly what is the deployment history. Here you can see it was deployed to a dev org, then to a test org, stage org, and production org. And if you want to look at the logs at any specific stage in deployment, you can also see that. And you can see exactly what happened as part of the deployment. So here I can see this particular deployment was done to the UAT org. It was unsuccessful. And if I look at the error log, it'll show me all the errors why that particular deployment failed. So these are all the typical errors that you see from Salesforce that you'll see it here. We can also do org comparison. So in this case, you can compare any two orgs in Flowsum. You can compare a UAT org with a production org. And based on the differences, you can create a deployment and then deploy those differences to bring to, let's say, the UAT org to bring it in sync with the production org. So in this case, you can also compare the same org at different points in time. Here, we are comparing a test org after development, and we are comparing a test org before development. Everything that you see in yellow, those lines are different. Those components are different. And anything that's in red, that component is the new component, or it's missing in the other org. If I want to create a deployment, I can quickly select all the components. I can give it a deployment name, and then click on Add to Patch, and a deployment will be created for me. If I want to look at the code differences, I can also click on any object, and it'll show me side-by-side differences between the two orgs. It went away. So here, what we are doing is we are doing the comparison between two orgs at different points in time. You can always see what changes has been made. You can do automatic backups, and you can compare those backups done at different points in time. Here, you can see what are the different deployments done between custom object. And so if I click on View Detail, it'll show me the entire XML. How is it different? If I scroll down, you can see the values which are in yellow. Those lines have been changed. And the values which have been here, there's a field which is missing on this side. So it's color-coded based on red, yellow, or green, based on what change has been made. We offer full continuous integration, full continuous testing. So you have full continuous deployments and Flowsum. We can also integrate with Salesforce DX. So you can create scratch orgs. You can integrate with Git. And you can also have full integration with Git. So you can have integration with Bitbucket, with GitHub, whichever you want. But what we see is most customers who look at Flowsum, although they want to integrate with Git, but after they do a trial of Flowsum, they see what we offer in Flowsum is much better than just integrating with Git. And what we have seen are some examples of merge conflicts. We have a very sophisticated merge conflict resolution algorithms, and it's made differently for different components. Like if you compare Lightning resources, those components are typically not handled by Git. Or static resources, they are not handled by Git. Whereas in FlowSim, what we do is when we compare Lightning resources, we can unzip those components, we can compare those components and show you the differences so you can merge the configs very easily and then bundle them and commit them to the repository. So it's highly productive compared to using other systems. But we offer full integration with Git as well. I have 4 more minutes, so I'm going to talk about one more topic. We have also data migrator, where you can migrate data from one org to another org. So in this case, what we do is we migrate relational data. So you can take the entire schema, accounts, contacts, opportunities, all the child objects of those. You can subset the data, and then you can migrate that from the production org into the development org. So if you are using an application like Salesforce CPQ, Velocity, Encino, typically they create a lot of configuration records. You can use that to migrate all those configuration records from one org to another org. Or you can take a subset of data of your standard objects and then migrate them to the development sandbox and convert each development sandbox into a partial data sandbox. So this is a quick way to populate your development sandboxes with your data. The way it works is you can create a sequence. So here you can create a sequence. So that sequence works like a template. And then under the sequence, you have the various objects registered. So here you can see we are going to move accounts, opportunities, price book entries. And then they will move in this particular sequence from the source to the target org. You can also define, so here you have picked the objects, but you can also pick which columns you want to move and which records you want to move. So in this case, for the accounts object, here we have selected a couple of fields, but if you want to move more fields, we can move all of them as well to the target org. In addition to that, if you want to scramble the data while you're moving it, so let's say if you have social security numbers, checking account numbers, all those things, you can scramble the data when you're moving them from the source to the target. You can also select what are the filter criteria that you want to use. So here you can specify the filter criteria. So here we are saying all the accounts in California state should move. So we are selecting those accounts, and all the child records for those accounts will move from the source to the target. Now let's say for opportunities, if you want to have additional filter, you want to say move only those opportunities where the amount is greater than $1 million, you can define additional filter criteria. So it's very flexible in terms of how you want to skin the cat. You can define any kind of rules, policies you want to move. And then before migration, you want to check if your target org is going to have the data or not. So you can just do a quick dry run and select. It'll show you how many records will be pulled up at each level. So here what we are doing is we are doing a dry run and doing an analysis of how many records will be pulled up from the source to the target. We see a total of 6 records, and the space required in the target org is 12 kilobytes. Right? So it'll help you assess org is going to run out of storage or not. And then finally, you can also check, set up your target org in terms of enabling the triggers, disabling the triggers, all those things. So if I go on sequence, you can use a setup target org feature to enable all those things, like you can disable triggers, process builders, workflows in the target org before you fire the migration, and then enable them again after the migration is done. So that covers my time. I'm happy to hear and to answer your questions. Thanks.